Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga Texas construction update video. Well, welcome to Giga Texas on the 5th year anniversary of the official announcement of the factory and also construction of this amazing facility. Of course, this is also my 5th year of covering Giga Texas from the skies via the drone. It's just been an amazing journey, and I'm looking forward to be able to show you a little bit more about what that journey was like. Now, I get a chance to tour inside the factory today, which is very special on this 5th year anniversary to me. And unfortunately, I'm not able to show you the video or images from inside, but I can show you 5 years worth of changes. And that's what I will be doing here momentarily. But I do want to take the opportunity just to recognize the amazing work that has been underway here for 5 years. Changed this entire section that used to be just a sand and gravel mine right where I'm standing to becoming this amazing facility that you see behind me. So while I go in and I do the tour inside the factory, and again, thank you very much to Tesla for allowing me to do so. We'll go ahead and get into the rest of the video and I'll show you a little bit more about the incredible journey that this factory has been on. And it all began on the 22nd of July, 2020 with the official announcement. This is what the site looked like with that map. Tesla will build its next gigafactory near Austin, Texas, was the headlines. Building the Cybertruck and the Semi. Of course, we know some of those plans did in fact change. $1 billion factory coming to Travis County, which was a huge influx of capital for this region. We're talking about, at that time, 2,100 acres, right off of Texas 130, employing 5,000 people initially with wages of about $35,000. Now, during the second quarter 2020 earnings call, Tesla was excited to announce the factory. And of course, here in Austin, they also mentioned that the work had already begun. And I did find that when I arrived, there was some construction work with preparing the land, and they were definitely ready to go with this announcement. I thought I would start the 5-year anniversary look back and celebration of Giga Texas here on the side of the main highway, looking across the site towards the main factory building and everything that has been built up since. However, things were quite different about 5 years ago. Now, this video is from basically the same vantage point, but from July of 2020. Of course, this is my very first video of Giga Texas, so it's kind of special to me to be able to show this now with 5 years of progress since then. You can tell that they were hard at work trying to prepare the site for construction, and this work would be continuing for several more months. So while we're back in 2020, I thought I would show you some extremely rare original footage by Jack Farrington, who is a member of the Quad Squad. These drone shots show what the site looked like just before the announcement and just ahead of any of the construction. We're looking at these ponds here. That is the north part of the main factory. This is the North Bridge and some of the work that was underway here, unrelated to Giga Texas. This is looking back towards where the main factory would be. You can see the main highway and the road here heading over towards that North Bridge will eventually become Tesla Road. Now we're looking at where the main factory would be. You'll note those 2 toll booths. Those are still here, and if you see any of my drone footage today, you will recognize those toll booths, and that helps give you a mark about where we are located. Now, the main factory would be on the left of the screen. On the right is that West Support Facility. And we're going to fly along that site, and this is where the material staging yards are, the end-of-line facility, the outbound logistics lot, and the West Warehouse on Wheels, along with material staging and contractor parking. We're headed towards the south. We're approaching the Colorado River.
and you're going to get a chance to see it here momentarily. And this is focused back along the river to where the factory is across the highway. And of course, here's some more of the sand and gravel mine hills that were eventually removed. This is on the north end where the north part of the factory would be built, right on top of these hills and valleys and all of the trees. In the distance, we can see the old baghouse plant that was here before Giga Texas. Also on the right top is the old Martin Marietta batch plant that has recently been moved. Here is the far north of the site. This is that large rectangular clearing, and we'll see the other clearing on the left, which I call Lone Tree. And well in the distance is where Giga Texas would be constructed. This is a close-in view of that original baghouse plant. Now this is the location for Megapack 2, and nearby would be Megapack 1. Also the new electrical switch yard, and much of the area that is being prepared for the expansion of the electrical switch yard. You can tell with the very prominent power lines here, and that helps gives you that kind of a idea of where exactly we are located. This is looking back across the highway. We'll see the area for the factory coming into view here along the main highway, and in the top center is that north bridge where we also would have Tesla Road eventually, and on the upper left is where the main factory construction site will be. So these are extremely rare early on shots, and I hope that you enjoyed being able to see this part of the history of Giga Texas. Now we fast forward about a month, and the work was really getting underway. They were preparing the ground. So on the bottom left is some geotextile membrane that they were already starting to place on the ground. They were bringing in a lot of dirt, and most of that came from off-site via just a constant stream of trucks, and they were leveling up this entire grade and preparing it for the next phase of construction. This is a nice view across the highway to where that west support facility would be. More of this area is where the slab and the ground for the main factory would be built. This is looking on the east side where that parking lot would be, and on the far right top is where we would see the battery cathode plant built eventually. This is also looking across towards that east side. We're basically above where the north end of the factory would be right now. You can see some of the power lines that are still there, and much of the site that needed to be completely filled and leveled and prepared for that construction. Now a few months later, the main slab or the main grade for the factory had been mostly prepared. This pit is for the isolation foundations for the stamping presses, and this is the first of many of these that were constructed here at the southeast corner of the factory. And it will be pointing a little bit towards the north along the length of what will eventually be the factory. Now we'll start on the north end looking back to the south. I wanted to show you this because this is the very first vertical assembly for the factory. This is actually part of the paint shop. At the time we called it the gazebo, and it basically formed the basis for the rest of the steel structure for Giga Texas. And you can also see on the east side the graded area. That's for future construction. So that was well underway. The basic grade for the factory was mostly completed at this time. And this is a great shot of where the factory would be. Now as we transition to 2021, this is a very pivotal year for Giga Texas. As you can tell by these images, not only was construction continuing at a very fast pace, but it was also beginning to appear that they were preparing to do production. And what eventually I discovered, or at least I realized, was that they were doing something called a minimum essential capabilities approach to the factory. And that would be, as they were building out the factory itself, they were essentially trying to get Giga Texas as a completed empty shell. And within that shell, they needed the minimum parts to be able to make Model Y, and that would have been the stamping machine section, the body in white for the robotic welders, the casting machine section, the paint shop, the driveline, and General Assembly 1. And with those, they were able to begin with the very first production of the Model Y in August 2021, which was just about a little more than 12 months since the beginning of the grading work that we saw. So that was a pretty amazing feat that they had accomplished, and with these images it just gives you some more idea of what was going on with the factory. So most of 2021 brought the factory up to being able to make production of some of the Model Ys. They had that minimum essential capabilities for bringing on production at the same time as construction, which is just amazing. And they were really preparing for the next stage of Giga Texas. And some more of these images shows how the factory itself was being fitted out. Here we see the temporary electrical switch yard, which was important. They see some work on the west side, and the factory itself, how it was coming together very rapidly. And we also saw some changes with the west main entrance. The south end had some significant changes as well, plus a lot of interior changes too. So now we go into 2022. This is a period of time where the factory saw some significant support facility improvements, one of which is the south end, where they prepared it for new vehicle staging, and that lasted for some time through 2022, and it allowed them to be able to position the vehicles for transportation. A lot more equipment was installed throughout the factory, and we started to get an indication that the temporary electrical switchyard was kind of a limiting factor for the factory as it continued to grow larger and larger. So that's why they ended up building in a new electrical switchyard that was much more substantial than the temporary switchyard, and that took place throughout most of the year. And we also saw a mega pack being installed, and the purpose of that was to not only supply backup power to Giga Texas, but to help with the electrical grid in the area. More work on the west side for that support facility, including the end of line and the outbound, was underway. And we also got a chance with the Cyber Rodeo to have a lot of public view the inside of the factory. And what was pretty apparent at that time to me was there was a lot of empty space, and it kind of goes back to that building the empty shell of the factory and then iterate from that point. And since then, we've seen a lot of interior changes, which includes mezzanines to add more floors, and to move some of the operations over to the west end of line facility so that it comes out of the factory and there's more space for production, and just a lot of other changes on the inside of the factory to fill out much of that space. And we also see that the work was continuing on the west side with the River Road. They were experimenting with stain for the exterior color. Eventually they chose white, and they were also putting in a lot of the perimeter roads around the facility. As I mentioned, this shows where the electrical switchyard was coming online, and a lot of the production of the Model Ys was underway here throughout 2022. So in just 2 years, they were able to finish most of the basic construction and have a lot of production of the Model Ys. And in addition to that, starting to do some infrastructure upgrades, including the electrical system, which was a constraining factor for Giga Texas throughout 2022 and partially into the next year as well. And that's why it was so important to have that built out for that electrical switchyard. They also started construction on the battery cathode plant, which brought Tesla farther into the raw materials of battery manufacturing. And in addition to that, a lot more equipment started to show up at the factory, and that was being installed inside as they were preparing for Cybertruck production, which would be coming online in 2023. So this is a great view here of what was going on all around the site in 2022 for Giga Texas. Now, as I mentioned, 2023 was a big year because they were doing a lot of interior expansion and adding capacity with mezzanines, new floors, moving operations such as the end of line out of the facility, reconfiguring the west main entrance to be more suitable for production. And I would estimate that from what we saw at the Cyber Rodeo in April of 2022 to the end of 2023 and into a lot of 2024 is that Tesla has added somewhere around 50 to maybe even 75% of floor space and added capacity for production with all of those interior changes and filling out a lot of that empty space that we saw back in 2022. In addition to that, they started to do some preparations to extend the length of the building. The old lot that was used to stage vehicles on the south end was broken up, and the operations were shifted over to the east side temporarily before they moved over to the west end of line and outbound logistics lot. In addition to that, we also saw more infrastructure in the form of underground water management system being added in to support the extension of the building, and that's part of what we're seeing here with these images. And we also saw more of the work to try to increase the treated and sewage water lines throughout the factory. They also were doing work on gas pipelines and other utilities that were needed to support the growing factory. Now, that new electrical switchyard came online originally with 2 large transformers, and that provided enough power for the growing factory, but that rapidly became obvious that that was not going to be enough. So preparations were put into play to expand to 3 of the transformers at the switchyard, and also there was some preliminary work and discussions about maybe increasing the size of the electrical switchyard even more, and that would start to materialize in 2024. We also see some changes here with the old original temporary switchyard being taken down, and it was removed, and that was to allow them to eventually put in a new megapack number 2, which we will see a little later. But this is a great view of what that new electrical switchyard looked like, and it would help with that constraint with electrical power that Giga Texas had been working through. We also see work at the 4680s as more production equipment was brought online, and they were trying to expand the production lines from the original 4, which was really about 1.5 that was operational. The others were being used for testing and training. And part of it is because they had to work through a lot of challenges with some of the technology associated with the 4680s. And some of that had to do with calendar roll having delamination because of the hardness of the dry cathode, and some other technical challenges as well. They were also starting to really produce a lot of the castings as more castings were installed into the casting machine structure. There was other changes that happened as well. They removed the windows on the east side of the casting machine section and added in ventilation ducting instead. And on the roof, they added in a very powerful filtration and air pumping system. And that was because of the environment within the casting machine section, and they were trying to make that better for the workers and also for the equipment. In addition to that, they started adding in furnaces into that section and that kind of completely changed what the original plans for the casting machine section was. And eventually we'll see that they started to add in a baghouse filtration plant and a melt center to allow for the operation of those furnaces. And here is some other views of that original Megapack site and the expanded electrical switchyard, of course the battery cathode plant, the die shop, and more of the work to extend that south end of the building. And it started with this smaller extension on this south end, and then of course they started putting in the footings for the main building extension as well. Nice shot here of the overall look of the factory. The end-of-line facility was rapidly coming together, and on the right-hand side of the screen is where the outbound lot would eventually be installed. A nice shot here showing the die shop and the battery cathode plant, plus the cooling units for that plant. And on the far north, that large field was being used for a lot of material storage. The crash testing facility had been very operational and busy with a lot of the testing, especially for the Cyber trucks during this time. They added in the Cyber Circle, and we're preparing to begin work on the parking garage, and that would eventually be built here on that southeast side of the facility. And we also saw some additional work here along the sides of the building. Now moving into 2024, a lot of major changes were taking place. Starting on the south end, the superstructure was really starting to take shape. The boring company was operational here with the Proof Rock 3 preparing for the tunnel, which would be eventually called the Cyber Tunnel. Work to pave the outbound lot and finish the end-of-line facility was well underway in early 2024, and a lot more materials were being stored on the west side of the site as well. Here's a great view of that toll booth that kind of gives you a mark comparing to the earlier version of the video that I showed you, and work on the west main entrance was nearly completed. We had these temporary platforms on the southwest side, and this is what that south end extension looked like. And we did find out that this was going to be for Cortex 1, which is a data center with about 100,000 NVIDIA H100 GPUs and the cooling system that goes along with it, and that was well under construction. Also, the parking garage was taking shape very rapidly as well. Now, we saw a lot of test bodies for Model Ys on the north end, a lot more castings and preparations along the east side of the casting machine structure to extend out that apron area. Operations for transportation continued on the east side. Work at that cooling plant and the die shop up near the battery cathode plant was continuing. And in addition to that, the east side of the cathode plant was starting to be prepared for a lot of the asphalt and concrete that would help with the mud. The electrical switchyard had got its third transformer, and with the announcement of the Cortex 1 supercomputer, it was pretty much decided that an extension of that switchyard was needed. So early preparations began, and we saw towards the end of the year the work to begin that extension. On the east side, we also saw where River Road was being extended past the parking garage, and the work with the boring company on the Cyber Tunnel continued, and a lot of the tunnel segments had shown up and as they were continuing to make progress underneath the highway. This is what the end-of-line facility looked like as it came online. Also, the outbound lot, and many of the Cyber trucks were being built at this time in 2024. We also saw work to create a new entrance, a lot of battery can recycling going on, and the solar panels, the center portion with Tesla, were nearly completed. And this is what that west main entrance looked like. They had not finished the flagpoles yet. That would take place later in 2024. And we also saw a continuing stream of a lot more equipment arriving to the factory and the beginnings of the baghouse filtration plant on the east side of the battery cathode, at the casting machine structure, excuse me. And in addition to that, more work in and around the crash test facility and this alleyway between the die shop and the battery cathode plant. And a nice look back across this site to the main factory. On the upper right is where that old batch plant for Martin Marietta would eventually be removed, and we'll see construction in that area in 2025. Nice higher altitude view of the factory. More work here on underground conduit that would support a connection to the main factory, and again, some ground level shots of this south end construction site. So a lot was going on here in 2024 for the factory, and some of it was to increase the production capability, and a lot of it was to kind of address some of the supporting infrastructure needs, and that continued through most of the year. Now these views are towards the end of 2024. A lot of progress on this east side of the casting machine section as they are preparing that melt plant and also the baghouse filtration plant. The east testing calibration lot was being used for testing of Cybertrucks. More conduit was being installed on the north end, and we can tell that a lot more of the area around where Tesla Road is going to be extended eventually was under construction. A lot of testing at the crash test facility was underway. Again, more work on the cooling plant at the cathode plant, and this is that Martin Marietta batch plant that was removed later in the year in early 2025. As we continue to look around the site, we can tell that the work on the electrical switchyard was really coming along. This is across the highway where we now see some more steel and trucks being stored. Of course, the work on the glass on the south extension, the 3 tunnels for emergency egress for the employees, concrete being poured around the cooling plant for Cortex 1, and a nice view here of the factory with a lot of the kind of the steam coming up out of the vents on the roof because of the temperature. This is what the cyber pond looked like. More preparation here for putting in some canopies at the south end of the end of line facility. And of course, this area was being prepared for more equipment that would be temporarily stored here. The tunnel was mostly complete at this time, although the superstructure that looks like a Cybertruck was not completed. A lot of Cybertrucks still were being produced at that time. The flagpoles had now been raised, which is awesome, and this new employee entrance was well underway. More of the castings were put on the north lot. The canopy for the melt center was well underway at this time. And of course, this is a close-up view of where they were preparing to add in another transformer for that electrical switch yard. This is far to the north, looking back across the to the factory. This is that large rectangular area now with more equipment being stored. And this is what the northeast side of the battery cathode plant looked like. They had some wall panels removed and a temporary platform on the side of the battery cathode plant. A lot more of the rack mounts for the castings on the north parking lot area. And all of this leads us to the current year, 2025, and many changes continue to be made here at the factory. The canopies for the supercharger at the end of line were erected, plus more operations at the outbound lot. These items we now know are headed to Giga, Nevada. They're stamping presses for the semi. A lot of transformers started to be stored here on the west side. The caisson construction was well underway. The cover structure for the cyber tunnel was nearly completed, and the flagpoles were really a kind of a nice iconic symbol that you can see anywhere around the region for Giga Texas. This is more of that work with the caissons in the south end. Concrete had been finished up, being poured around this south end by the cooling plants, and a nice view of the overall factory. The River Road extension still needs to be paved. The work here on the east side of the casting machine structure with the baghouse filtration plant and the melt plant. And not too long after this picture, we started to see it in operation. The testing for the inductive charging was near the east side superchargers. This is what the roof looked like on the parking garage with some snow and ice on it. And they were continuing to do windows and preparing for stain work on that new south extension. The new employee entrance was taking shape. This north end with the castings was being used for a lot of castings. And then this is the new Megapack 2 site, which is in place to support the Cortex data centers. The electrical switchyard expansion was continuing to add in that electrical capability so that they were unconstrained with power, but with the new Cortex and what now looks like a Cortex 2, the power demands here at Giga Texas are a lot higher, so that's why we're going to be seeing here the work to extend that switchyard. Now, there was continued work to finish up around the crash test facility and put in more concrete, and this is what it looked like at that time. Also, this is that large area on the north where the items were stored. Now we see that a lot of those items are being recycled and that whole field being cleared out, probably for some additional construction in the near future. The window line on the south end was being extended to match up with the original window line. And of course, the cooling system was coming almost fully online, and now it's a regular occurrence to see all 6 of the fans being used. In addition to that, more work here on the east side with new platforms, and that's allowing for increases of the mezzanines inside, adding more production lines, bringing up a lot more equipment on the inside of the east side of the building. On the south end, the fork was installed. We can see some landscaping around the base of the flagpoles and a nice overall view from the south looking at the main factory. The area near the Colorado River was really looking good after the ecological uplift program was completed. Of course, the outbound lot and the end of line was really busy with new lanes to allow autonomous driving of the new vehicles from the factory to the end of line. More work on this large field. The caisson and tunnel work continued. Autonomous driving vehicles, as we mentioned, which was a major milestone for Tesla, and more berm work to install some trenching and pipe work along this side of the building. We see more of the rack mounts on this sorting lot on the north, a lot more equipment being delivered on the east side here where the melt center was fully operational, and we started seeing castings for the cyber cab. The baghouse filtration plant was nearing completion, and the operation here of the recycling center was just about to start. Both megapacks are showing good signs of being completed. Megapack 2 is just nearing the point where it may become operational, and of course the big clearing for the new construction for the Cortex 2 facility next to the die shop and near where the electrical switchyard is located. This is what the crash test facility looks like. More of the concrete has been poured. They're continuing to do the preparation work for extending of Tesla Road, and Cortex 2 facility started to go vertical. And as we look around this north end, we can get a good view of some other parts of the factory in addition to this new structure. And more details about the Cortex 2 are hopefully going to be coming in the near future. Right now we have permits that talk about it, but as far as how exactly it's going to operate and whether or not there's going to be cooling towers similar to what we see in the south end is something that I'm looking forward to. Here's some really nice night views around the site that I just recently did, and it kind of gives you a little different view of what the factory looks like with light from the inside, and also some of the ambient and character lights that they use around the facility. The end of line lit from inside is beautiful. The cyber tunnel with the light bar, and of course much of the interior of the building where we can see more of those mezzanines and that vertical build out that I was mentioning that has taken place over the last few years. This is a caisson again with more of the tunnel liners being installed, more of the work here at the outbound lot, cyber trucks, and also there was a semi there, plus more of the staging of materials, preparation for these stamping press items to be moved to Giga, Nevada, where movement is already taking place, a new large white tent-like structure next to transformers, and tons more equipment for production arriving on this west side. The temporary trailers are being prepared to remove the old ones for more construction, and more of the berm work here on the berm next to the northwest side. The cyber berm getting repairs, more equipment being delivered for the casting machine structure, and the melt plant is fully operational. New opening for equipment in the casting machine section. You can see that crane moving in more of the milling machines. And of course the Cortex 2 now has most of its structure. They're starting to add the final roofing materials, and continued operational work on the cooling plant here at the battery cathode plant. The crash test facility has been very busy as usual, and it looks like this whole section is coming along very quickly, including some additional expansion of the site from the original permits. A new vault that's going to be part of this expansion of the electrical switch yard is under construction. Of course, a lot of vehicles being transported off-site, and a nice top overview of the entire Giga Texas area.
So there you have it, 5 years of Giga Texas, and just the amazing amount of change and progress that has been made. I can't wait to see what the next 5 years is like. Once again, I just want to say thank you very much to Tesla for allowing me to come and spend this day here at the factory and kind of just look back on the 5 years of the factory, and just the trust and I don't know, just the privilege that they've given me to be able to do this, cover the factory, and be able to share with all of you around the world that have been interested in what is going on here at the factory, and just kind of keep abreast of what's going on with Tesla in general. So again, thank you very much to Tesla, and congratulations to everybody that has played a role in building this factory. 5 years is a great anniversary, a time to look back, and just looking forward to the next 5 years. So thanks a lot.